So I'd like to welcome a variety, actually not just carriers, but also active players in the MSO and cable industry. So David Barron from CableLabs, Gustav Grundin from O2 Czechoslovakia, Winston Damarillo from SMART Philippines, and Tomofumi Miura from Docomo, as well as Adrian Shatku from UNIFI. Gentlemen? Great, good, thanks. David, good to see you again. All right. Good morning. Good, thanks. All right. Great, so a big group to wrap up the day, having a conversation and go through a number of the carrier gaps and innovation needs slides. So actually, I think we should jump right into that and do that introductions with the slides and then go into the discussion from there. Although I'm going to hope that I don't actually know the order. I believe first up will be David Barron. So
no, actually it's going to start with Winston's slides.
Yeah,
we're kind of in perfect order.
You were juggling on there while I was up here on stage. Fair enough. Let's see what comes up and we'll go that way.
Perfect. I think that starts with SMART and PLDT. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Winston Damarillo. It's my first time here at TC3. Thanks for having me. Just landed in Manila, so I'm powered by coffee at this moment. Let me introduce my company. I represent PLDT and SMART Communications. We're a telco out of the Philippines, about 70 million subscribers. We're in the market where the entire telecom segment is fully saturated. We basically have an average of 1.7 phone per adult that can afford to have one. So a lot of things are changing in the telco landscape in Southeast Asia. I think PLDT is a really good example of it. We're in a market that's saturated. Our ARPU is no longer growing, and we pretty much sold telephones to every single one that can handle one. So where it's going, it's evolving, and this is kind of an important topic for me as we join here, is that we're changing our relationship with our customer. Most telcos have a relationship with a SIM and a phone number. Our telco is changing our relationship to a user and a digital user from that perspective in a region where there's fast growth in young population, high consumption on digital technology. So with PLDT and SMART, our interest these days is to make a lot of investments to make our telco look a lot less like a telco and a lot more like an internet company. So ecosystem from our perspective evolves around the end user and the end user profiles that we want to serve. We're re-engineering the way we deliver the digital services to focus on that user first, and then provide them sort of like the equivalent of an iTunes for a telco. So from our perspective, we've just allocated an investment capital of $50 million a year around investing in video, audio, internet, music. From our perspective now, voice and text is just input into our ecosystem, and smartphone is just one of the devices we support. We've also evolved quite a bit, and this is part of our conversations earlier, how we engage with partners. If you're used to working with a telco, you're going to have a hard time working with us, primarily because we've focused more in serving our new markets, and therefore that necessitates new kinds of partners and new kinds of partnership process. We have also reached out to the markets where we think innovation is happening. So in addition to kind of a broader, wider goal of investments, we've opened an office here in San Francisco and El Segundo. And contacting us is basically reaching out to where we are. So we're in Silicon Valley. We have an office in San Francisco. In creative economy and content, we have an office in Los Angeles as well. Thank you.
There we go.
There we go. Thank you.
So just a heads up, in between each of your slides, it looks like they're transitioning to a different computer, so there'll be that 5-second delay. Fine.
Okay. So hi, I'm David Barron. I'm with CableLabs. For those of you who are regulars with the Telecom Council events, you may have met me along the way. Unlike the other panelists on this panel, I'm actually representing a large number of diverse companies across the world rather than just one single one, because we're an R&D consortium for the cable industry worldwide. So most people, when you think about cable, you always think about the historical legacy business, which is pay TV. But the reality is, since the mid-90s, we've really kind of evolved as an industry to adding broadband, to becoming broadband and broadband services as a primary mechanism for delivering services. So television, of course, still continues to be an important part of that. But we then also look at things like smart homes, security systems, telephony, both fixed line, and there are a number of our operators that are looking at wireless telephony through a variety of mechanisms also, and of course a number of other emerging types of services. One of the things that we wanted to make a point of for this panel is when we're looking for technologies or new companies or startups, there's a wide variety of things that we're looking for, and a lot of those companies don't think about the cable industry or telecom in general when they're thinking about those things. So obviously better pipes is, you know, the network and how we can improve network performance, but what people forget is it's not just the wireline network, it's also wireless. CableLabs has been investing a lot of money in hiring more people in wireless than any other group, and quite frankly, that's not necessarily true with all of our members in terms of hiring more people in that area. They're staffing up significantly and bringing a lot of wireless expertise into the company. So you also look at things like security and identity management. So security in terms of cybersecurity, that's a really, really critical issue, since broadband is now considered to be a really critical infrastructure industry. But also things like identity management, trying to authentication technologies, all those kinds of things become really important. Analytics, of course, understanding better how to use your customer data to provide better services and provision better services for them. Technologies, I've talked to a number of companies out here over the last 2 days that are doing things in that area, and that is a very important area also. You know, and then of course enterprise technologies, small business, consumer and content applications. So, you know, the funny thing is a lot of our operators are looking at over-the-top services to actually provision alongside of their pay TV services, and people don't think about those kinds of things. So anyway, just wanted to make a point of all these different areas. If you're looking to reach out to us, we're primarily based in Colorado, our headquarters. However, we've got a Silicon Valley Center here in Sunnyvale, and that's where I reside. So feel free to contact me or anyone in our organization if you have any questions.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tomofumi Miura from Docomo Innovations, which is a 100% subsidiary of NTT Docomo. So NTT Docomo is like the largest telephone company, mobile carrier in Japan. So it says which we have 66 million subscribers. But what makes us kind of unique is that we do have lots of non-telco services, which makes 4 billion per year. So we have video streaming, we have some vegetable shipping, those kind of things, lots of wide range. So we also do a venture investment. So what we call the code for innovation is like that. Anything is fine. Anything but that generates some revenue. 10 million US dollar in 2 or 3 years. That's what we want. Then we do invest in startups, and then you can use that money to expand your business into Japan. That's what what we're doing right now. If you want to contact me, easiest way, just Google Docomo Innovations. We have a website. There's a contact. Submit something, or there's my email is there. So Miura Docomo Innovations. Just contact me. Thank you.
Okay, my name is. There we go. Gustav Grundin, and I'm a Swede living in the Czech Republic. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for O2 Czech Republic. I'm a bit of an oddity here, partly because I'm European, but also because I represent a relatively small operator. It's a national incumbent in a country that's the population of Michigan poured into the size of South Carolina basically. So we have 4 million subscribers. And the reason I'm here, we don't have any huge funds like these guys to spend, but we consider ourselves, and I think others do too, to be relatively leading in certain types of innovation in Europe. We are, as far as I know, the only operator, at least in Europe, that has ever pursued structural separation voluntarily. So we split our company, the network, from the commercial business voluntarily. We have clearly the most progressive IPTV platform in Europe, etc. We can't offer money, but what we want to offer is to be a reference case or a place where you can try stuff out. Yeah? because we're small, we're faster in making decisions. We make it in weeks, not months. And we're small and agile to deal with. What are we looking for? I'm asked to come with some call for innovation. I have some list of things which is going to look roughly the same as everyone else's, but I have one specific area which is a bit different. A lot of the innovation you see here is either very sort of OTT, where the only involvement with the network is that it carries data, or it's very network deep, like a Sandvine DPI box. But what we're looking for is what we call the elusive middle, which is essentially OTT-like applications or services that utilize the basic network APIs that we'll provide available. Things like, I'll give you a very simple example of a small such innovation. Changing a ringback tone is easily done by an HTTP call to a server if the operator allows it. This allows you to, for instance, sell Pepsi corporate ringback tones that have their most recent commercials dynamically changed for all their employees, etc. So we're going to make all these, I think as the first telco, all these APIs available to developers and partners as of 13th of October this year. Apart from that, as you said, anything you have, especially if it's about IPTV, but essentially anything you have that you want to try out in a smaller scale operator in Europe, you can contact me or my colleague Martin Horowitz as per the mail address in the chart.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here today. Derek, it's good seeing you again. I even tried to match the orange socks.
I hate competition.
I am the founder of a company called UNIFI Communications. We are an international carrier, probably one of the smallest, but I was happy to see Cellular here, so not here alone. Traditionally, we've been serving carriers around the world, basically in the area of voice and data transit. We are an emerging market-focused carrier, and basically serving anywhere between voice, VAS, data across the globe, operating in around 26 markets. I'm here today because we have expanded our reach basically beyond just our traditional relationship with the carriers. So we are also approaching utilities now and basically focusing on the industrial Internet of Things, or we call it the smart grid solutions. And we are quite agnostic as far as the vendors, whatever is the hardware or software. And we put it in very simple boxes for you to take a look. And basically, we are interested for any innovation that could go in those boxes. We're based in New York. I'll share my contact with you. And I look forward to speaking, and feel free to reach basically either me or my colleague if you could help us with these solutions. Thank you.
So I'm going to jump in quickly and introduce your moderator for this panel. Gary Cohen from ITG is going to take over and do the moderation for this panel. Thanks a lot for the introduction, gentlemen, and have a great session.
Thanks, Derek. Well, guys, thanks for two things. One, for presenting your companies. Second, for providing the emails for people to go directly to you or to contacts. And the theme of what we wanted to try to accomplish on this was to dig a little bit deeper and provide insights for the audience in how do you work with a telco? How do you get your foot in the door? What are the best methods and means? In the case of these guys, they've given you their access, but there's, I don't know, 750 other carriers out there that you might want to be working with, both on wireline, wireless, cable, across the spectrum. So you've got a wealth of talent up here and experience. What we wanted to do is transfer some of that knowledge in how do you get in, what are the telcos looking for, and not in a broad way, like we're looking for innovation, but there's certain things you need to do to position yourself to exploit the opportunity that you might get. And like we always say, you only get one chance at a first impression. So the first time you get through the door, what do you want to go through the door with, and how should that look? So we've got a bunch of questions that we'll try to help answer that. One of the first ones is, how does an entrepreneur figure out what the true needs of a company are? So it seems like, I invented a hammer. I'm sure everyone needs a nail. These guys are going to need a nail, but they might not need just any nail. So if one of you guys want to...
Well, let me start with that, because we put a lot of thoughts in that these days. A lot of the vendors that come to us think about us as a telco still, and they think about what the telco needs. And I think the really good advice I can share is, because this is how we think, is think about our customers. In other words, follow the money, follow the customers, and help us project what the future customers of us would look like, right? We're saturated, right? We will buy more telecom equipment, but that's just to replace what we already have. We don't even begin to forget what OTT means or VAS means, right? We're beginning to think more about how we serve our customers. So instead of trying to figure out what exists within a telco environment today and how you can participate in that, we would be more than happy, actually, at least in telcos in the Philippines, and I think this is true for Southeast Asia, is for us to get to know more about how do we serve a digital customer. Because that's where we're all going. We're saturated. We've sold all the phones we can. And that's really the next revenue, next business model that we have greater interest of. And because that's our greater interest, we have started the process of even transforming how we engage.
Winston, so to that point, let's say that I want to go to some carrier in Egypt, and I don't know anything about what that carrier's strategy is and where they want to go. How would any of you guys recommend learning at a distance about...
Start by getting to know Egypt before the telco, right? So in the Philippines, I'll give you an example, telco has $3 ARPU per customer, but we're a fast evolving digital customer. A significant part of our economy is transactionally influenced by digital natives.
Where would I find that information?
Google. Now, I think that's what we're looking for in the vendors. Do your research in our markets, right? Not just the telco. And that's, that's where we're seeking for where we can make our next revenue. And that's the partnership we're looking for.
I was just going to add exactly to my colleague there. One of the things that we are looking for, at least, is how can you help us unlock some new values on this amazing amount of assets that we have invested in customers around the world. So basically unlocking new values. So if they're able to come with that, obviously there's a lot of interest to pursue further.
So if I can just expand upon Winston's answer, is exactly correct. You need to do research, as Gary's suggesting. What I would suggest is, first of all, target a geography, a country, whatever the case may be, and don't just Google. Look at news reporting. Look at key executives, what they're saying to reporters, what the press releases are, what are their key initiatives, what are they trying to do. Those are going to give you a key to the areas that they believe are important. Now, obviously, the different press or what you would be looking at in different countries or different regions varies quite a bit, but that's, I would think, the key is look at what they're saying to the press as what they're trying to roll out.
Yeah, I think there are 2 points. One is like, you need to look at their competitor. Like NTT Docomo, we have a competitor SoftBank, KDDI. If those guys are doing something, normally those other carriers kind of following that. And then maybe if you can top up it, hey, KDDI is doing A, but if you are using my service, you can do like an A+. Those kind of pitch will work. And then second thing, like most carriers are struggling with like getting revenue. Because you guys know that everyone has like smartphones. There's no room to grow. So like us, like I said, 10 million revenue. If you are doing a pitch says, hey, if you're using this one, 10 million revenue, 2 years. This is how it goes. So those kind of simple pitch will work, I think. But just like in Japan or the other country, can develop the countries.
Well, Gustav, you brought up a point earlier about we're a smaller carrier, we're willing to be your trial. From what I've experienced, big carriers will not be your trial proof of concept partner. So if you come in hoping that Verizon's going to adopt what you have, set you up into their infrastructure, set up the billing, worry about what's going to happen to the consumers or the subs down the road. After the trial didn't work, we still, as Verizon, we have to live with what we sold them. So Verizon will not be your trial customer. But you were talking about you would.
No, I think that's, I have worked both now for this relatively small national incumbent, but also worked for Vodafone Group at group level. I work for Telefonica at local level. And my experience is, at least for these large European groups, the big five, decisions take forever, like absolutely forever. And it's done more or less in, I hope no one is here. No, that's good. More or less in consensus between the markets, and it's very difficult to get anything through. I think the most common question from me when I meet startups or innovators, and with most of my colleagues from the carrier side, not from the fund side, is who else has done this? Who else is doing this? Who else are you working with? That's the first thing I ask. And usually, if there's nothing, that should be your only target. Get someone. And that someone is very likely to be a small independent carrier as opposed to a large group. The large groups you can get later. But there's plenty of relatively small independent carriers. That would be my biggest piece of advice. The largest mistake I see among people I meet is, especially from the US, they look at Europe and they say, Switzerland looks pretty small. Why don't I try Telefonica? That's a big group. That's, there we have some scale. They have scale, but you get nowhere. It's much better to be very important for a small guy than the last priority for a big guy.
Here in the US, we've had so much consolidation that you used to be able to go to Metro, Cricket, Boost, and now you jump down from the tier ones to US Cellular, and then it's a big drop down to C-Spire, Bluegrass Cellular, Midwest Cellular, and all those. But I would still recommend that's where you'll get your foot in the door, and we'll talk more about how to get your foot in the door when you don't have an email address or a phone number to go to. But you can get a proof of concept here in America. There still are 250, 300 small regional carriers that they're looking for a differentiator.
Exactly, or you come to Prague, where we're open for anything. I think another thing on this topic that I want to mention, and also this is based, when speaking to people here primarily and in the last couple of weeks meeting people, I think when you're looking for that first reference customer, it's different later, but don't be so sure that you understand exactly how the telco is going to make money off your product. I met a lot of people who spend half the time thinking about what they're building and half the time thinking about how I'm going to make money from it. I can assure you, I know that a lot better than you guys. As long as you have something that generates significant value for someone, I can figure out a way to make money. Either I do it directly through revenue as you're looking for, or I can do it through anti-churn activities or bundling, or there's many, many ways. But I would focus less about that, at least for your first reference case. Much more focused about build something that actually has real value, that is something new, where you can imagine that whether the telco sells it or just gives it away, it's still, people go, wow, okay, that's cool. Because the people I speak to have a too well-determined idea of how to make money, they just look a little bit off.
So guys, let's talk about getting in that front door. There's different, we talked about every country has a different culture, different set of priorities and strategies by carrier. But getting through that front door that's the hardest first step. And we were talking backstage about different ways to do it. Do you go hire some gray-haired guy who's worked with the company, the carrier, for 20 years? Do you put them on their board, on your board? Do you contract? Just hire them as a contractor? So what's your impression about getting help or getting no help and an expectation that the entrepreneur or the founder is the first one through the door?
So I'd like to give the most obvious answer in this particular forum and tell these companies to come to TC3 or a Telecom Council event. And I say that half in jest, but quite frankly, the point is find a very focused, intimate kind of event like this where you can actually meet people and talk to people. It's not some large conference with, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 people where it's really difficult. In a place like this or a similar kind of forum, you can really start to talk to people and meet people, and that would be probably one of the first suggestions I would make to a company.
Good one. Winston, what's your thought?
Well, we're expanding our front door, and we wanted to become more closer to the investors or the companies we want to invest in. It's a little bit different, I think, for the emerging country telcos because we're seeking new ideas. My suggestion, again, David mentioned earlier, look at the press releases that we're coming out with, all the strategy statements that we're putting out to market, and then follow that lead because it is in transition. We're having less and less gray-haired people in our telco, and we're looking into markets where it's not traditionally served by a telco. So our ears are trained a little bit differently and tuned a little bit differently. For instance, PLDT-SMART, and including our competitors, Globe, we're more interested in talking to founders. We're more interested in talking to startups. And we built venture capital groups to get that alignment a little bit more. So slightly different, but I think getting to know our future customers in our countries, in our geos, would be a good place for start for emerging countries.
Yeah, simple answer. Like I'm the kind of the front door. Yeah, my job is like to introduce you guys to the headquarters. I have a good relationship with the headquarters, so come to me, pitch, and then figure out how we can help you to like get into Japan.
What should I do if I'm going to pitch you and I get one chance? I can't keep calling you every week.
Don't worry, you have the 5 chances, you know.
I have 5 chances?
Yeah, because like, you know, if you start the company, maybe seed round, maybe too small. But, you know, next year, if you kind of like, you know, improve your business, come to me again. Then, you know, if you improve something, so maybe, you know, it's like, you know, I don't think there's only one chance. As long as you grow, or you're doing good, maybe 5, 10 times.
I very much agree with this, and I think if you look at this in Europe, I mean, most telcos have someone like us, someone who is supposed to look around the world and find and introduce things to the company, right? 2 things to keep in mind. A, in the end, at least for like deploying your solution, it's always the line management that make the decisions. Yeah? Unless the head of consumer wants to do something in the consumer division, it will never happen no matter how much I want it. Yeah? On the other hand, the line managers only know what they need tomorrow. Like that's they don't care. Whatever I'm deploying tomorrow, that's what I care about. The job for someone like me and us is to know what the line manager will want 6 months from now or 1 year from now. And that's my job, and to place you in that context. Now that can mean that you could come at a moment and we discuss something. I said, like you said, actually this is not for now. Yeah? We're IPTV now for the next 6 months, but that will now be in my head. And 18 months later, or whatever it is, you could very well be up for another conversation. I very much agree. I don't think it's a one-shot thing. And timing for us matters a lot. Exactly the same product could be hugely important for me 12 months from now while it's not today.
Okay. Any comments?
I concur.
You concur? Okay, that was a good one. What about rules of engagement? So everything you guys have said is, I'm your front door, I'm right here, come on in. But there's a whole world out there that's not, there isn't an apparent front door. And there's protocols in every country. Some countries, they don't care if you want to jump over all the line managers, the business development guy, go to the highest office you could get to and start there. And there's other countries where that's the kiss of death. So how do I learn, you know, the culture? You guys talked about Googling the company, the country. But how do I learn these nuances in China when I don't know anything about China? What would you recommend I do?
I think it varies highly by country and region, and I will only speak for Europe. I think you will have differing views. The only thing that's a total no-go is to send me a mail that I'm 100% sure was sent exactly the same mail to someone else with a different name in the header. Beyond that, and by the way, we can tell, yeah? But beyond that, I think in general, at least in Europe, it's usually best to go through the designated point of contact who does this as for a living. Whereas if you go to the line manager, they would probably brush you off because, as I said, they only think about tomorrow. And if you go to the CEO or take some other route in, it usually gets stuck somewhere. So, I mean, at least for Europe, I would argue that there's almost always someone like us. They're relatively easy to find. They will have business development, innovation, strategy, or partnerships in their title. You can usually find them on LinkedIn, and it is their job to take your call.
So, to that end, definitely, if you're not familiar with the country that you're trying to do business in, first and foremost, find someone who can educate you about the culture and the customs, because that can absolutely be the most critical or point to success, or could absolutely kill any opportunity you have. And then the second thing is find someone in those countries who understands the industries, the psyche, the politics, how they operate, and make sure that you understand how they think. And third thing I would say is don't make your pitch to the person you care about as your first pitch. Find somebody in the industry to make your pitch to that you don't care about, or maybe they're retired, or whatever the case may be. So that way you can make all your mistakes and they can tell you what you did wrong before you actually do it.
I only speak to Japan, about Japan, but prepare that, to be honest, at some point you need to have some entity there, or you need to have some good partner there. If you are here, if you think that you can sell the product from here without partnering some Japanese partners, it won't. So only two ways. You're going to have the entity there, or you're going to find a good Japanese partner who speaks Japanese, to be honest. Yeah.
I think one thing to add is, well, know who you want to go after too, right? Because there are telcos that are looking forward to partner with more aggressive, younger startup companies, right? So I think part of your homework is not just to pick a market, but get to know who you want to work with. Like in our case, we're in transition. So for me, I like people that break the rules. We like entrepreneurial startups because that represents the kind of products and services we're going to get from you. But that's because we decided to. And you'll see SMART and PLDT say so, right? We're saying we're on a digital pivot. You see that all the time. We're saying we're going to invest like any VC in Silicon Valley, and we're putting our office here. So getting to know the actual target gives you a flavor, an idea on how you'd engage. Because if you come to me, and my first 3 months in my job started with vendor courtesy calls, and I rejected all of those. Right, because I want to hear what you have in mind kind of differently. But again, we express that ahead of time. Our press releases say that, and I think that's one assignment to do is get to know who you're gonna go after.
Adrian?
Yeah, I was just going to add, it's you need to scan the ecosystem in the country as well, and also read and scan quite well the regulatory regime of the country, because it could be a challenge. And before you go to meet the CEO, the CFO, the Chief Strategist Officer, it's good to know and scan the entire ecosystem of the country.
I appreciate that. Well, I'll offer my 2 cents. For 15 years I worked for the carriers, and for 15 years I've sold to the carriers, primarily US and Canada. And as an entrepreneur working with startups, you only have so much money and you only have so much time. So with that time variable, speed is important. And I don't know how many guys knock on your doors, or send you emails, and you're going through dozens or hundreds of people who want to come show you what they've got. But I found in the US, and especially here in the Valley, you could try to do it yourself to get into a telco, which is long, hard, and arduous. You could hire someone as a contractor who's already got a Rolodex, has done it 1,000 times, knows how to get in. You could get somebody on your board of advisors and leverage their network, leverage the speed. And this is an American perspective, not a European or Asian. But in exchange for a few options, you've got this guy who is going to go open the doors and do it. So there's a couple of different ways to approach it. And not every entrepreneur has the ability to do business across the whole globe. So the telco in your backyard's the first one you think of. Might not be the best one. But there's a lot of ways to get through that door. I think you need to weigh those options as well. We only have a few minutes left. When I've listened to these guys, and honestly, it was enlightening to me to see these open doors. That's not traditionally how it's been, and even with all of the global carriers coming to the Valley, setting up either an investment or an innovation office here, we're a small group, but we live here. There's a whole country out there that doesn't know they're here and has no idea how to get a hold of them. What would you guys recommend to kind of go beyond the Telecom Council, you guys, to try to understand what the opportunity for my solution is globally. How could I understand the total addressable market?
I don't want to speak to the total addressable market, but if you're trying to figure out how you get into a large company of any kind, whether it's a telecom company or supplier, whatever the case may be, you know, I would say, first of all, everyone likes to go as high up the food chain as they can. That's often not the best way to go at all. Talking to the CEO is generally not a great idea. Even the CTO sometimes, they're too far above the actual technology and may not understand and may not want to admit that they don't understand what it is you're trying to pitch to them. So what I would suggest is find either the strategy group or the product group, the highest level person who deals with the technology that you're responsible for. And you can find that out through a variety of mechanisms. If you're in North America, LinkedIn is a wonderful tool. And I know they also go beyond North America, but there are other tools as well. But look for the highest level person who's responsible for defining products and services for something that's related to what you're doing.
I completely agree with David. In fact, if you can find opportunities to have an early, quick start that can produce a quick win, right, and then move that up the chain, I think that, you know, if you can find the shortest path to start working with the telco, you don't necessarily have to, you know, be highly visible inside the enterprise. But if you can start with something unique and of high value and kind of grow that relationship moving forward as part of knowing the partner that you have, I think that's what works, at least in Asia, because it's easy to get started. And once you have that success, you know, even if you're a startup and doesn't fit the qualification of a certified vendor for telco, that usually is a good enough driver to kind of move up faster and more aggressively.
If I can just add one quick thing to my answer. The other thing is look at the investment groups, the venture groups or whatever, because as we saw 2 sessions ago, you know, Telstra invested in Cohere and then rolled them out. So that's also another wonderful way to get in the door.
Yeah, this is what I was wondering to say. Just an investment group is a great way to find what the opportunity, what the market you have. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Yeah. I mean, anyone who works here, work the way we do, can help you articulate what it looks like across the world. Just find the right guy in each organization. And as you said, at least in Europe, LinkedIn, search strategy/business development and the company name, and you find the guy.
Yeah, and I was just going to add the industry conferences too. They help.
Well, any questions that you guys have? Yeah.
Sure, it does. So, assuming that the startup has something innovative to offer, would you be able to share your thoughts about what or if there is anything that the startup should or do in terms of trying to protect its IP when it approaches you?
Is there a concern that by talking to the telco, you could be exposing your IP and it could be
Yeah, so maybe
away?
should they be thinking about signing an NDA, or that's just not possible? Or if the NDA is signed, what is the assurance that because it's a big telco, what does the little entrepreneur, what recourse do they have?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, obviously we would be able to sign NDAs and so forth, but I think one thing that's important to understand is that the reason we are here is because we fail so miserably in doing this ourselves. Yeah. I mean, even if you gave me the brightest idea ever, I could never, ever get that done in my organization. That's why I'm here. So I wouldn't be so concerned. We have thousands of ideas. We've had them for a very long time. We have managed to build not a single thing. So, you know, I wouldn't be so worried, frankly.
Yeah. Well, and
NDAs generally are not that easy to reinforce anyway.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, and to add to that, you know, if your idea is so basic and so unprotectable that if you just whisper it to someone, they can steal it, you probably don't have anything anyway. But obviously the normal IP protections, patents or copyrights or you know, various kinds of trade secret types of arrangements, they vary from country to country. But that would be your first step. But the second thing I would say is having been somebody who has drafted and negotiated NDAs in the past, non-disclosure agreements, they're often not followed in terms of process. So therefore, you think you have protection and you really don't because you didn't follow through and do exactly what it said to do. So I tend to not think that NDAs are the be-all, end-all for protecting ideas.
You know, I'll throw one thing out. I did a deal with AT&T about 6 months ago, and their legal process takes forever. So we had NDAs in place. We were working through the whole contracting, and they said, you know, we really need your data. We need it now. And, you know, and I was weighing, like, should I give it to them? And I'm not under contract. And what's the risk? And how much exposure do we have? And this woman at AT&T said, we're not going to screw you. Like, the last thing we need as this giant company is to steal from a vendor. Like, we're too big to go into that world of, come on, let's kind of take it and not pay him and we'll never sign. And I thought about it, and she convinced me. I was like, I don't think they're going to do this to me. And they didn't. So to you guys' point, these are huge companies. They can't steal your idea, run with it just like that. And even if they did, I would document. I went and talked to Tomo on September 30th, talked to him about that, put it in your journal, and if they ever show up with it in a year or two, you've got it in writing, you met with them, and so that's my answer is I wouldn't worry too much about it.
And one last comment on the NDAs. I mean, actually, it's we who should be worried, because even if there was an NDA and there was a breach, unless you are a very, very rich person, sir, I very much doubt that we could sue you for the kind of money you could be suing us for. Right? And so it's very asymmetric, the NDAs, because you can actually get some real money from us that would hurt us and make you very happy. I very much doubt it goes the same way around.
I want to thank our panelists. Guys, thanks for volunteering to do this. Thank you, everybody.